Okay. Welcome.
I wish you bluebirds in the spring to hear your song, a song to sing, and then a kiss. More than this, I wish you love.
Welcome to the Forgiveness Solution Podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Misty Tyme. You can find me, Reverend Misty Tyme, right here on the Sacred Stories stream and the Forgiveness Solution podcast with many wonderful other podcasts. Also, you can find Rev Misty at, of course, all the social media, revmisty.com, also Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Well, today on the Forgiveness Solution podcast, I'm really excited and my heart is just full because today I get to talk to Samantha Tucker, who I met recently and was blown away with the dynamic person that she is. Her story, unbelievable, and I can hardly wait to share it with you. So Samantha, we like to call her Sammy, is an Air Force veteran, a Paralympic Archer, public speaker, author, and resilience coach. She's also a former crystal meth addict, sexual, emotional, and physical abuse survivor. She looks back at the day of her accident as the best gift she was ever given, and I can hardly wait to dive into that, and Sammy can tell us. Sammy, can you introduce yourself and say hello to the Forgiveness Solution audience?
Hi, Forgiveness Solution audience. Yes, this is Sammy Tucker, and I feel so honored and blessed and really excited to be able to connect with everybody on this platform. So, Misty, thank you very much for having me on.
No problem. Like when I said when I first met Sammy, you know when you meet certain people, you can just almost see their energy popping out of them? Well, that was definitely Sammy. And that was before I really even knew anything about her story. So, Sammy, we're going to talk about your story today. We're also going to talk about where forgiveness fits, not just in a religious sense, but in a society sense, about letting it go and how that helped you in your life. So, Sammy, why don't you start by telling the audience your story?
Yeah, my story, unfortunately, I think is so similar to the majority of people's story. I had a dysfunctional background, and who doesn't have a dysfunctional family? I just think that's the norm now. It used to be, not the norm, but I think it really is. And I experienced a lot of abandonment and, physical, emotional, sexual abuse growing up, multiple divorces, alcoholism, violence. It just a lot of chaos and confusion, and it was a generational thing. It was, we do what we know. So my parents and my family, I honor and love them because they did the best that they could with the tools, wisdom, and knowledge that they had at the time. But it left me a very angry, confused, hurt child. And when I was 10 years old, my family decided that, well, we would try to find God because what we were doing wasn't working. And unfortunately, that didn't really work either. I got a little bit more confused because of the lessons and the dogma that I was introduced to that really didn't help me learn about forgiveness. Religion became another area where I was an abysmal failure. So I left high school and set out on a path of self-destruction. And within, under a year was a raging crystal meth addict and had an abortion and was, suicidal and all of the things that a person does when they don't have the skill set to process their own emotions.
Oh, that already, I know so many listeners can relate to not having that storybook childhood. Actually, when you started describing yours, I'm like, are you sure we're not related? And
yeah, I know. I know. We all are so similar. We're more similar than we're not.
Right.
And people like to focus on the differences, but my gosh, we're so similar.
We are, and also similar in need for love and safety and companionship. So now we're left off after high school, that you left high school and then you had an addiction, all of that. When did you start to see your life starting to come together a little bit?
Well, I got pregnant, and I was in the middle of my raging mess time frame. So I hit my knees, and I cried out to God, and even though I didn't really know God, I was just, if you just heal me of this and save my baby, I'll when you make that deal with God, I'll straighten up. And Misty, it was the first miracle I've experienced in my life, because I got up off that floor that day and was completely healed of meth. I never went through withdrawals. I never had another craving. And I had been trying for a long time to get off of it, but the withdrawals are just so horrid. And completely healed, and had a beautiful baby, and decided that I needed to break the chain of abuse and failure and divorce and all of that. So I joined the Air Force. And I learned to work within the structure of that organization. I needed the mission. I needed the purpose. Everybody we have 6 human needs, and one of them is contribution and growth and connection. And the military gave me those in spades. And I was able to have a very successful Air Force career as a radio and TV broadcaster, and got married again. And on the surface, everything looked really good. I was really good at my job. I had a seemingly happy marriage, but honestly, it was just a fresh coat of paint on a rotten, crumbling foundation. I still didn't have the skill set to deal with my emotions. I didn't have the skill set to deal with my abuse, and I was still, had thoughts of suicide most of my adult life. So I ended up on antidepressants. So I was numb throughout most of my adult life, and just going through the paces. And even though everything looked good on the surface, I ended up having 3 divorces, and terrible relationship with my kids. I didn't know how to love anybody because I didn't know how to love myself, and ended up seeking out a position to be embedded with an Army unit to deploy to Afghanistan, because going to a combat zone matched how I felt inside. I mean, I wanted the higher purpose and service, but my life was absolutely falling apart. I was going through my 3rd divorce. Kids weren't speaking to me. It was horrible. I thought, well, I'll go to combat. At least everything will match what I'm feeling on the inside, and maybe I'll get some sense of purpose in serving, a higher need, and serving the soldiers that I had been working for so long. And
I think you bring up a really good point about the fact that inside of us is a combat zone. If we haven't learned the tools to deal with life's tumultuous things that happen to us, we do feel like we're in a combat zone, and that becomes our normal, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it was my normal. And, there were times in my life when I really tried to put the pieces together. I tried to forgive, my elders, my family, my mom, but I always came into it with the expectation that I would apologize and forgive, and they would do the same. So it was very conditional. Yep. And every time I tried that and I didn't get what I expected out of them, I became angry and hurt even more. So it was very conditional forgiveness, because I expected a behavior change. I expected, them to perform differently, to, take responsibility for what I felt was their wrongs. Right. And it never worked, because it doesn't work that way, Misty.
It doesn't. Have you read my book? Oh, my goodness. I say that exact same thing in my book. I talk about apologies and expectations and how we really want people to own their stuff. And don't forget, we want them to change. Then we can forgive them.
Yes. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Right. That's exactly what I talk about in my book. I talk about that both with my family and, different situations and people we work with and friends, and all those expectations that we just are throwing those around all day, and they're probably very appropriate expectations, but some people do not have the will or the skill to live up to them. So you are just right on target in understanding how our society and religion kind of focuses on forgiveness. We kind of have it wrong, don't we?
Oh, totally. And forgiveness is about the person. It's about me. When me forgiving other people, it was really about healing myself, because forgiveness is just healing your own self. I cannot control what they do. And I always went into these situations expecting them to fix the past. I had an impossible expectation. You cannot fix the past.
Absolutely, you cannot. You cannot change your yesterday. No, you cannot.
No. Yeah, I can reframe what the past means.
Right. Right, and learn
Yeah.
and all those lovely, juicy lessons in there. So now we're at that place where, did you end up going to a combat zone?
We were 6 months out from our deployment, and I was, like I said, going through my third divorce and was riding my motorcycle after work one day, tear-filled eyes, ticked off at the world, fighting with my husband and not paying attention, and I hit debris in the road. And my motorcycle went down, and the throttle got stuck, and my sleeve got caught in the drive belt, the back wheel. And it dragged me down the highway and ground off my arm. And I was awake during the whole thing, and it was just one of these amazingly surreal moments. And as my motorcycle hit the bottom of the hill and came to a stop, and I pulled myself out from under it, most of my arm was gone. And I ended up laying down in the ditch, and I'm laying there in complete silence, alone, watching the leaves blow in the breeze with this realization that the thing that I had been wanting most in my life was finally happening. The pain was going to end, and I wouldn't have to suffer anymore. And I didn't have like the movie shows, this movie reel of the highs and lows of your life. I just had one emotion and one thought. I just had this overwhelming sense of remorse. And I thought, this is what I did with 41 years of life. And it was just overwhelming. And so I'm there in this black hole of remorse, with moments to live because my artery was gone. And at that moment, everything changed. It's like the colors changed. It's like every atom in the universe just came alive, and my senses were so heightened. And I heard a voice, and it said 3 words. And I heard, "You are mine."
Oh.
And when Jesus shows up in the ditch, and he says, "You are mine," what that did at that moment, Misty, was it took all of the beliefs that I had in my life, and it shattered them, because I believed that I had made a decision at a very young age that God was a jerk. And he must have been schizophrenic, because this whole forgiveness and then condemning, and it was horrible. And so when he showed me, hey, you've had this wrong, you're mine, you've always been mine, I love you, I got excited about life for the first time, because I realized if I had my relationship wrong with God, and that belief was wrong, then what are the chances that I had every belief wrong? And I thought there were pretty good chances. I had everything wrong. So I got excited about life for the first time, and the lady that was drug out of that ditch, carried out of that ditch, was not the same one that was drug into it. And so I took that realization, that truth, and I applied it to every aspect of my life.
I just want to tell you that I have tears in my eyes. I had no idea about that part of the story.
Yeah.
I'm so in awe of you. That Jesus in the ditch moment is life-changing, not just for you, but hopefully for other people who are listening. I know for me, just hearing it fills me right up. And that you are worthy, that you are enough. And we go through so much of our life not thinking we're enough and not worthy. And
that is it. Yeah.
Yes,
and I'm his beloved, and that's my identity now.
Right.
And the thing is, Misty, that was my identity from the first time that I ever learned about God, when I was 10 years old. I was his beloved my whole life, but I refused to. I didn't know how to absorb it. I didn't know how to accept that. And, taking his forgiveness, I can now truly forgive other people, because the forgiveness just sets me free. Forgiving my parents and my siblings and just everybody, my ex-husbands and myself, has set me free. And it's that freedom that I get to share with other people, because the very thing that life tries to destroy you with, when you overcome it through God, is the very weapon that you can use to help set other people free of the same thing.
Well, I want you to know, just that story touches so many people, and not all of us get to have that dramatic moment, but when you were pulled out of that ditch and you had a different feeling about you in that moment, even though you were dying, what happened next?
So the thing that kept coming out of my mouth was, I don't know what this means, but it's going to be freaking awesome. I just knew. And so a soldier came by, put a tourniquet on my arm. 5 days later, I had what was left of my arm amputated, and 19 surgeries and things like that. But I just knew that whatever God had in store for me was going to be awesome. And I look at my arm every day, and I'm thankful, because I realize when I look at my arm, it was my thoughts that put me in that ditch. It was my thoughts that manifested this brutalized arm. And so it keeps me aware of what I think and who I'm around and what I allow to enter my mind and my heart and my soul, because we become a reflection of that. And it keeps me close to God. And if I could bottle that experience, Misty, and force feed it to everybody in the universe, I would. But all I can do is share my story, that it resonates with people.
I know it's resonating with me. One, we have very similar childhoods and alcoholism and all of that, and a few divorces behind us, and the pain that we cause other people from our own pain and all of that. And my moment was not as dramatic as your moment, but I think everybody needs a bit of that moment to know that they are fully loved by God. In all major religions, God talks about love and compassion and caring, and we all get so stuck in the dogma, and you mentioned that earlier. Dogma, for anybody who's listening who has wondering kind of what that is, that's actually human interpretation of what God would like from us. And when that happens, all I have to say is human, we kind of can mess that up sometimes, and we lose the intent of the loving, caring, wonderful, beautiful God that is there for us and loves us fully as the flawed, amazing people we are. So 19 surgeries, chronic pain. There's no way there's not chronic pain there.
Right.
How did your family and your children and everything react to your change?
My family has been so amazingly supportive and surprised, and it brought them all together in the hospital. Not my kids. My kids still don't talk to me. My youngest daughter hasn't talked to me civilly in 7-8 years. So it's those are consequences of my choices and my behavior. And I pray that someday that relationship is healed, and it's healed with my oldest daughter. But I have peace knowing that I'm doing all that I can. And, hurt people. And so I hurt them. And I did what I knew to do, and it wasn't wrong, and it was very painful. And hopefully someday I get the chance to make it right with them. But in the interim, I'm going to continue to love and forgive myself and share that with as many people as I can. And my family, it was a really neat experience for all of us, because my mom's a Christian, my sister's a Christian, they flew in. My dad at the time was an atheist. And so he flies in, and he hadn't seen my mom since I was little. And I have a whole bunch of friends from church, and he told me later, he's like, I kind of started figuring out which ones belonged to you, and when they would come, I would run out. He said, because for the first couple of days, they kept coming in droves, and they would trap me in that room and pray. I couldn't get out. But he was so concerned. He called me every day for months. He was afraid I was going to commit suicide. And he's just like, I just don't see how. I've had friends who have gone through less and have killed themselves. I just don't see how you're going to be okay. And he kept begging me to go to therapy, and I kept telling him, no, you don't understand. This has like been the best thing that's ever happened. I'm free. I'm forgiven. I love myself. And he is no longer an atheist. He's an agnostic. So that's progress.
Oh, that is progress. And, that's just questioning. Yes. And I say questioning is a good thing. And, he was in that room, and he saw the power of prayer, which I also talk about in my book.
Yes.
And the fact that we do all own that power. We own the power to help each other, to show up for each other, but we also have the power to bring God into our circle. And I'm so excited that God was in your circle, and good people showed up for you, and your father and your mother were able to show you their love. See, God's like that, right? Shows the love. Even when we think that we all can't be in the same room together, we can, because there's just love right there.
Yeah.
And, I could not be more saddened for your accident, but thrilled for your transformation, to know that you're loved, that you're cared for, and that not just people love you, but God loves you, and that we're here for a reason. Now, you are an author and a speaker, so you get to share your story in many different ways and in many different platforms. So let's talk about a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So, when I left that ditch and I said, I don't know what this means, but it's going to be awesome, I went on a journey of examining all the beliefs in my life. And, one thing led to another, and it's been a slow, long, progressive, deep journey, which led me into the subconscious mind and how our neurology, it's the science of belief, basically. So I do a lot of emotional freedom technique, neuro-linguistic programming. I teach people about the subconscious, how to speak to it, how to change their beliefs, really what's behind the limiting beliefs, and how to achieve the goals that they want. One example is when I decided to, take up archery after never knowing how to shoot archery, and make the Paralympic team in, 17 months. And it was just a journey of how can I rewire my reality internally and then make, and wait for the external to catch up. How can I become the person that I want to be and wait for reality to catch up, which is what we all do. We're projecting our future, and we create it with our thoughts. So I help people, rewire their beliefs. And I love helping kids learn why they believe what they believe and rewire their thinking at a very young age, because if I had known what I know now, I could have avoided all of this.
Exactly. And you brought it up earlier, generational pain. So we tend to believe what we are seen and heard and been into, and when you're born into a family that isn't healthy or able to support you in a loving way, then we start having those limiting beliefs. Yes.
80% of your beliefs are created by the time you're 6 years old, Misty. We don't even have cognitive function, really. It's all subconscious programming. So we're running through our life with beliefs that were created before we were 6 without any reason of, hey, I think this is true. It is true because that's what we've experienced. And, science has shown that we run about 40% of our day on autopilot. So we are just repeating past beliefs and experiences. I mean, I looked at my mom's life as a young woman, and I looked at my life when I was in my early 20s and went, oh my God, I'm just reliving her life. We do this on autopilot. We don't know. But it becomes our right, our norm. This is who I am, this is who we are, and this is what we are capable of doing. This is what I am worthy of, and it's not based on fact. It's just based on historical repetition.
Well, I want to bring up again that you had to lose something, a part of your body, physically part of your body, to, gain so much. And what a deep lesson for all of us, and that we do have limiting beliefs, that we do form them early on, and that we repeat generational behavior. And how do we stop that? Well, we need to change our beliefs. We need to gain the power to understand that it's much bigger than that, right? And for some, it's definitely the God piece comes in, which I, as a reverend, I'm all about that. And and also the sacred that is you. All of a sudden you have to see yourself as sacred. And that doesn't happen for so many people, because so many people they're on autopilot and they don't see the sacred within themselves.
Right. And Misty, there were 3 things that I had to do that I did initially from the moment in that ditch to, the first couple of weeks. The first thing was that I had to decide. So when God was in that ditch and he said, you are mine, I could have decided to say, well, you're and continue along that line. Well, if I'm so loved, why am I in this ditch? I could have chosen that path, because that's the path I had been choosing. So I had to choose differently, choose to believe differently. The second thing I had to do is I had to take 100% accountability for being in that ditch. God didn't put me in that ditch. My beliefs, my actions, my choices did. So I decided differently. I took 100% accountability, and then I had to change my environment, because I was a reflection of my environment, and I looked at my close friends and my circle of people and went, wow, I'm not really liking their lifestyle. And my lifestyle reflects theirs. And I'm sure they are all individually great people, and I know God loves them as much as he loves me. But I deserve better, and I want better. So I took a hatchet, and I severed all of my relationships, Misty, everybody, all of my friends. And it was brutal, and it was 100%. It wasn't, we'll hang out part-time. It was cut and dry. Because if I wanted to change me, I had to change my environment, because you are a reflection of your environment. So I couldn't build a positive mindset and recreate my beliefs if I'm constantly getting reinforced the negative, limiting, toxic beliefs of my friends and surroundings. So for anybody who doesn't like where they're at, where they're in their life right now, those are the first three things you've got to do. Take accountability and then change your environment.
Right, because also our society grows us up to believe that everything is everybody else's fault. And
right.
I always say, free will, you mean we had a choice? You actually do have a choice. And it's really hard choices sometimes. And some people say, well, I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. Well, you do. You have a choice to react differently. You have a choice to put good things in your life. You have a choice to move forward in a positive way. And it is all about decision, right? You have to decide to do that, not go on autopilot. And changing your environment. Now, that is something that people don't realize that can really change your life. And again, just like you said, it doesn't mean that people in your life that might be having really negative aspects to you aren't loved by God and they're on their own path. But one thing about forgiveness you learn real fast, you don't have control over other people and their decisions. And
Correct.
You can forgive them and move forward in your life and put all good and positive stuff in your life. And it's not magic, but it feels magical when your brain starts to change and your environment and the things in your life start to change. Now, you had to literally, and you used the word hatchet, which I had to say, I was like, oh my gosh, she lost her arm and she's hatcheting things out of her life. It sounds physical. But for you, it was both physical, but it is intentionally something you have to choose to do if you want to call scissors or something like that. And I talk about boundaries a lot in my how you can use forgiveness. You can forgive somebody. You can love them from afar with a 10-foot pole. You have boundaries. You have fences around your life. It is your decision because you control the gate. You control the gate of what you allow in your life and out of your life. And Sammy, you are a perfect example of tragedy turning into triumph, and most importantly, understanding that you are really, truly a child of God. And I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Misty. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share, my experience. And, you don't have to lose an arm to have this awakening. There were so many times I look back on my life, I could have had this awakening had I chosen. But I never chose it because it's hard, Misty. It's hard changing.
It is hard. And sometimes it just feels too hard, doesn't it? It is just too hard. And that's why the mountain molehill, take things small bites at a time, and it's magical. If you're looking at the mountain, it seems too impossible to change so much in your life at one time. But if you change things, you'll notice that things become easier, and you feel empowered, and find faith and prayer and love. And when you find that friend that is exactly who you want in your life, make sure you tell them. Tell them that they're an inspiration. And first of all, you'll fill them right on up. Second, they will want you more in their life. It's okay. They'll want to share with you. So it's important to put good people around you that can support you during your journey.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you need to surround yourself with people who are like who you want to be, that have the values and the character and the traits and the skills that you want to establish and build in yourself. Yeah, you become the average. So you don't want any bottom feeders,
Yeah. And again, it's they're on their path, but you can choose your path, and that's the piece. It's not judgment. It's nothing about that. It's about saying, I can love you from afar, I can wish you the best, prayer, I can pray for you, which is probably the most powerful thing you could do. But just because someone is related to you does not mean you need them in your life. I talk about my twin brother a lot in my book because it was what spurred me to forgiveness, to really understanding forgiveness. I forgive him, all of those things, but that doesn't mean I want him over for Sunday dinner because he's on his path, his journey. But compassion snuck in for him for sure, and that's also what forgiveness will do for you. Compassion sneaks right on in.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a great gift to give yourself. Yeah.
Now, if somebody's looking for you and wants to read more about your story, maybe have you come speak or teach, where would they find you?
My website is sammytucker.com, SAMMITUCKER.com. They can email me at sammy@sammytucker.com. And, yeah, I'd love to come speak, teach. I give workshops that go through the whole process, and I'm putting out my online program with a friend of mine here soon, so that'll be coming as well. But, yeah, I love to come talk and give workshops and even do one-on-ones, so they can reach me there.
Great. Well, again, Sammy, thank you for joining the Forgiveness Solution podcast and sharing your deep personal story, your life-changing story. And I know it'll touch so many people. It has touched me deeply, and I'm honored to know you.
Thank you, hon. I appreciate this opportunity to connect. It's amazing.
No problem. Also, if you want to find out more about the Forgiveness Solution, please find me at revmisty.com. I've mentioned a few times my book, The Forgiveness Solution, the step-by-step process to let it go, is also available all major bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of that. Also, you can find it on my website if you're looking. And if you want to get a hold of me, please find me at revmisty@outlook.com. That's REVMISTY.com. Also Facebook, Instagram, and all those wonderful things. Until we talk again, have a blessed day.
I wish you bluebirds in the spring to hear your song, a song to sing, and then a kiss more than this. I wish you love.